the slides for this presentation. Okay, brilliant. Hi everyone, I'm Anna Baxter. I am a passionate wild swimmer. I am a member of the Manningtree Mermaids. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about ourselves as a group, as well as our application for bathing designation and how you can hopefully help other groups like ours achieve this designation. So who are we? Front and center here is our eldest mermaid in her mermaid tail. That's Chris. She's 76 years old. We are a diverse group. We have all ages, and we all just share a real passion for the water. We were started in 2020 by a wonderful woman like Kelly, who I know you know, who actually looks like a real life mermaid, minus the tail, what you would imagine a mermaid to look like. And it started with people being able to buddy up with someone when they couldn't go to gyms, for instance, to get outdoor exercise. In 2021, with all the reports about sort of subgroup called the Mermaids Against, and we started protesting against the releasing of sewage into our waterways. So we did 2 protests in 2021 and 2022, and then we launched our campaign this year called SWIM, which stands for Safe Water in Manningtree. And that is to get bathing designation, which I'll talk a little bit about why in a minute. We opened up the group. Before it was just a group. We now have over 700 members on Facebook, which is pretty good considering the last census said we had only 1,600 people living in Manningtree, in England's smallest town. So I think we have people coming from far and wide now to swim with us. So this is a picture of the beach that we swim off. It's the River Stour. It's a tidal estuary, so we can swim about maybe 1.5 hours before the high tide and about an hour after high tide. We have beautiful sand that's provided by our town council. We have a great relationship with our sailing club now, who've put up towel hooks. We had to fight with them a little bit to begin with for space, but now they've seen that we actually are out in the water more than most people are on their boats. So they've given in. There's loads of people who use the water where we are. Above there's My Blue Pass, which is a charitable organization that teaches kids to sail. My son's school class, reception class, is photographed below. They do beach school there. We have sailing club, there's school field trips, kayaks, paddle boards. It's a really well-used waterway. And in fact, I reached out to the Manningtree Historical Society. Most people think about us for witches in Manningtree, but we have been using the water to swim in, the earliest record being in 1912. People have been swimming in our river for over 100 years, probably hundreds of years. So a few pictures. We swim year round. It's a most magnificent location because it's tidal. You sometimes witness amazing sunsets and sunrises. We've got the solstice swim next week, which I think we'll all be swimming about 4 in the morning, I think. There's a picture of us digging a big cube of ice out of the water in January. Some people swim year round, some people don't. Definitely more women in the winter than men. I think it's probably the name. We have talked about rebranding to be more gender inclusive, to be the Manningtree Merfolk, but we haven't done that yet. So why we wild swim? This is a question I get asked all the time. I've done a few, as part of our campaign, a few radio interviews, television interviews. They always want to know, why do you swim if there's sewage in the river? And that's partly why we're applying for bathing designation. But I think if you talk to any wild swimmer, they talk about being in that river and they just get all gushy because it is the most fantastic experience. And I really hope that through groups like ours, driving change, and these individuals here, that more people get to experience the bliss of being outside. And I think being in lockdown allowed people to sort of take a closer look at nature and realize how special it is and that we really protect it. Groups like ours give a real sense of purpose. I only moved to Manningtree in 2021. My whole social life revolves around. We are all passionate individuals, and not just about swimming, but about protecting our environment. No one wants to go back to swimming in a swimming pool ever again because we have just such a beautiful natural resource. It's also fantastic for physical health. There's in the summer, I do longer swims, so it's good, for my cardio endurance. And in the winter, we obviously know a lot about cold water therapy now, and how it's good for all sorts of things. From my perspective, once you get in the cold water, you can't think about anything other than surviving. So that's good for your physical health, and I'm doing it. And then it's also wonderful for mental health. And there's studies that show even just being by water, whether you're walking along the water or in the water, on the water, is just really good for your mental health. And I can attest to that. I think this is Ellie. She's one of our swimmers and sailors.
Okay.
This is our first protest. It looks like we're protesting at night. This is about 8 o'clock in the morning in November. Front and center is Sir Bernard Jenkin, our MP, who we managed to get out on that time. Yeah. So part of the reason why we're protesting is Fergal Sharkey here, who's really well known if you are into understanding river quality health, and this sort of speaks to what other people have touched on today about how far behind we are in reaching sort of targets to make river quality better. This is on the left, it shows this is our closest CSO pipe. That's those combined sewage overflow pipes that we keep hearing about in the news, which spill into our rivers. We only just got what's called an EDM, an event duration monitor, put on ours, so we don't have that much data. And this is a little bit misleading because that only was on for 8 months of 2022. So we actually spilled about an average of once a month. It went in April last year, and we know that 4 of those months were very, very dry and we were in a drought. So part of the reason why we have launched our campaign SWIM is because you can get angry and you can stomp your feet and you can protest, and it's great. You've been keeping it in the news, but is it actually making a difference? We wanted to do something that really would drive change.
Hello, first this lunchtime, the world's swimmers fighting for clean water free of sewage. The Manningtree Mermaids SWIM in the River Stour on the border between Essex and Suffolk, and they say sewage in the water has made them ill. They've applied for the river to get official bathing water status, so it has to be monitored for water quality. But figures out this morning showed the number of sewage spills by Anglian Water actually fell last year. Zoe O'Brien reports.
A little bit of rain didn't stop the Manningtree Mermaids this morning. The weather doesn't bother these hardy swimmers, but the state of the water they love, that is a concern.
My children like to paddle here. My children wallow in the mud when the tide's out. They try and swim, learning to swim at the moment when the tide's in. I'm a bit anxious about that. Very much no heads underwater, but it would be nice to eventually improve things enough that I could not worry.
Water companies can let sewage out into river and seawater during high rainfall, but it can also spill from these outlets. A report from the Environment Agency this morning found the number of spills in the east went down from 21,300 in 2021 to just over 16,000 last year. That isn't entirely unexpected because of the dry weather. Today, the Environment Agency said it wants to see quicker progress from water companies, and that call is backed by wild swimmers.
We need to look after our natural resources. If we keep on polluting them, then what state are they going to be in 20 years' time? There's a real movement for people to enjoy outdoor activities. It's really important that they can do that and not be in fear that they might become ill.
At the moment, 68% of the storm overflows operated by Anglian Water are fitted with monitoring equipment. The company says it will be all of them by the end of the year. The mermaids are currently applying for bathing water status for the River Stour in a bid for more clarity.
What bathing designation does is it puts legal obligations into place to hold polluters to account. And it will give all of the water users, not just the swimmers, the information that we need to know whether the water is safe to swim in or not. And what we need is legally binding obligations that really make a change in the whole way that we operate our sewage system in this country.
Anglian Water says it's working with community groups. That's although there's more to do, it's committed to eliminating serious pollutions by 2025. It's also investing £39 million to reduce overflow impact to make sure our waters are safe to swim in. Zoe O'Brien, BBC Look East.
So that just came on very quickly, so I'm sorry I didn't get to introduce it, but that was a piece we did for BBC Look East, which sort of describes a little bit about why we're applying for bathing designation. So I understand you've heard a little bit about bathing designation, but I'll just give a little brief reason why we're doing this. It's a legal mechanism that we can put into play if we achieve it, which means that the water company, in our case Anglian Water, will be required to make further investment in our area. We think it's a positive message. I think for a lot of people, protesting was hard to support. It's kind of an angry thing. Applying for bathing designation is a really positive message. Doesn't matter what your political background is, everyone kind of agrees that sewage pollution is wrong, and applying to clear up the waterways, how could you not sort of get behind that? We think it's going to be great for our local community and local businesses. Currently, there are only 5 inland bathing water sites in the UK, and up until this year, there was only 2 sites. So our local businesses are really excited about this because it's going to hopefully bring businesses, people feel that Manningtree is a safer place to swim. It's probably the number one reason for us is it's going to hopefully improve the water quality. Now, bathing designation, all it's really doing is testing the water for E. coli and enterococci, which is for the safety of swimmers. So it's a first step. It's not going to deal with the forever chemicals or all the other pollutants that are in the area, but it will help us to identify the pollutants. And it's just the first step in what we can do to change. And then again, it's going to prioritize investment. So we are working with Anglian Water somewhat reluctantly, but we sort of needed them to support us. And they have continually referred to us in the last few months as drivers, which I like to think we're just little yappy dogs nipping at their heels, trying to force change. But it's because we're making a noise. They have said that our area will be prioritized for investment, which is good. We're England's smallest town, and we're making a noise, and we're going to make a difference. So this is currently shows all of our, this is a Safer Seas Act, which is part of Safer Surface Against Sewage. And so you can see all of these X's where they're saying that sewage releases have been on any given day, and therefore it's not safe to swim. Once we get inland bathing water status, we would become part of this map, and people would be able to see whether or not it's safe to swim. And our local authority will be required during the bathing season, which is May to end of September, post weekly results, so people can come to our beach. Oh, the water quality is good. I feel safe to swim. The application is long. It's a process, and because we've got so many coastal bathing sites and not inland bathing sites, we do need the criteria to be, or ideally the criteria will be adjusted by DEFRA, because they're so used to seeing thousands of people show up to coastal sites. The inland sites they don't have the infrastructure for huge volumes of people. So we are one of the earlier groups who are applying, and last year there were a number of groups who were rejected, and they weren't really given reasons. So we are pushing for DEFRA to be more transparent about what they're really looking for, because they talk about large numbers of water users, but they won't tell you what that means. Is it relative to the facility you have? It's a lot of work to not know what they're actually looking for. So the main ones are, we have to find a site location. The site locations, they can't be just any old place in the middle of a field where you have to hike for a mile to get there. You need to have things like parking and toilets. Those are really important ones. And again, this large volume of water users. Landowner support, local authority support. The landowner support has been one of the trickiest ones for many groups. We've been lucky with ours. We have 3 landowners on our little tiny beach. We have the Environment Agency, our local sailing club, and the Crown Estate. So all of those people need to support your application. Local authority support. We have met with all the local parish councils, our MP, the Environment Agency, Anglian Water, local environmental groups, all to try and get their support for what we're doing. And district councils as well as county councils. Local consultation, that's the period that we're in now, which is where we survey the public and ask them whether they support. And it is as simple as putting out a survey, but obviously it takes time for people to fill out a survey. So we've been doing a lot face-to-face with people, going to various, like the tendering show is coming up. We hosted a big beach picnic to encourage people to come out and sign it. We go to our local market every Saturday, talk to people about our campaign so that people feel, first of all, motivated to do the survey. Also, we get them to do it there and then on the spot. So we've hit about 700 signatures now on that. And then the count, which is what we're also doing. So you have to count the number of water users 20 times over the bathing season and produce those numbers. And they rate swimmers higher than they rate paddleboarders, because they say paddleboarders aren't as much risk. So there's all sorts of different ways that we have to count, but it's a time-consuming thing, and we've spent a lot of time sort of, you cancel or you madly reschedule because of the weather. So we've, as I mentioned before, we've done a lot of engagement, school assemblies, we produce a monthly newsletter, we've got a website, social media, we've done a lot with the local press, even just smaller publications like, or outfits like East Anglian Bylines we've done, where we actually write the article for them. And then we attended and hosted local events to raise awareness. We've been to all of the local primary schools teaching kids about the 3 Ps. Does anyone here know what the 3 Ps are? So the 3 Ps are the 3 things that you can flush down the toilet to stop. You know, the sewage companies love to talk about backups in the sewage networks leading to sewage releases. So one thing that we can all do as citizens is make sure that we are not flushing things down the loo or putting things down the drain that shouldn't be there. And reaching out to the kids is amazing because they go home and they tell mum and dad, by the way, mum, you shouldn't be putting those wet wipes down the loo. The 3 Ps, the kids love them. We go in a giant inflatable poo costume, and it's pee, poop, and paper, as in toilet paper only. So we sent, you know, we did a colouring competition, sent it home with all the kids so that parents were made aware of our campaign and would come out and support it. We produced a flyer that told people about our consultation. We hand delivered it to 5,000 households, and then we listed all of the dates and why coming out on specific days to support our campaign would be so important. So this was our latest beach picnic. In the middle there is Savannah Jenkins again, who as a result of this has said he's going to petition Parliament on behalf of other bathing groups in order to, us and other bathing groups, in order to get more transparency from DEFRA and to increase the number of bathing sites that we have in the country. This is an amazing day. We had 369 people counted in the water that day. So what will it do for our community? These are a few swimmers that have taken pictures with these wonderful signs. I'll just read a couple of them. Because clean water is our birthright, so we can all enjoy the freedom to swim without fearing for our health. Because our children deserve safe water to paddle in. Because it's good for physical and mental health, it's a no-brainer. And because we need to protect our wildlife and their habitats. So people have really gotten behind it. Why do we think that it's good for our community? This is a bit repetitive, but up and down the country, we have a cost of living crisis. Swimming pools are being shut down. In my area alone, there's 2 swimming pools that were attached to schools that have been filled in. And so kids don't actually even have access to swimming pools anymore. We have these beautiful free natural resources. Most people in this country live near a body of water. This will enable people to get out and swim locally for free. It will give people a sense of safety, prioritize the investment, and as you can see with all these people going into the water, it's given the community a real sense of pride. How you guys can help, this is probably the most important one. We've been doing this campaign as volunteers, the 3 of us leading it. We work full time, we have young children. It's been a lot of work. So any coordinating volunteers has perhaps been the hardest part. And we really could, most groups would really need help. So what you could do, team up with local water user groups. I know in Malden, I met the weekend, the Basin Bobbers, I think that's what they're called. They really wanted help with campaigning for bathing designation. Suggest locations, because obviously, like I said in the beginning, there's no point going to sites where they don't have good facilities. If you have connections with landowners and local authority, see whether they would give support for something like this. The application completion, it's a long application where you have to fill in loads of data points and things, help with that. Write letters, we need more transparency from DEFRA, we need to put pressure on our MPs and say that this is an important issue and one that you would like their support on. And then again, reaching out to schools has been invaluable to us in getting support. Organising fundraising events, you know, we didn't have massive costs, but hosting a party to get people, we had to hire microphones, for instance, producing flyers that all cost money. Citizen science, we have been doing some citizen science to get some early data. We have funding for this round, but going forward, we will be doing it self-funding. And this involves collecting water samples on a weekly basis during high tide, which is something very difficult to coordinate when you work full time and we're a tidal location. And then volunteering to help places count and survey people is also a task that would benefit from help.
Thank you so much, Anna. It really is. I know people use this too often, but you really are an inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
And I